on this 17th day of July, 2023. Good to be with you here as we got a lot going on as far as the world of baseball is concerned. As we begin the second half, theoretically, of course, Lou passed the first half with the amount of games, but with the All-Star break, we'll be all over that. Good to have Mitch Green in the house today. Jason's gonna sit there and be our producer. Joy here too. I would be remiss, since I'm a big tennis fan, I would be remiss not to spend a second or two on a wonderful Wimbledon final. This is match point with Carlos Alcaraz, who wins his second major at the age of 20. As Djokovic's great reign, well, if you want to call it that, 7 straight Wimbledons comes to an end in a absolute epic 6-4 in the fifth set. Alcaraz, of course, had lost to Djokovic at the French Open. I was thinking about this yesterday. A lot of rain in the Northeast, so a lot of teams, the Dodgers and Mets, sitting in that clubhouse for hours. I'm sure they had this on because I would think if you're a sports fan, this was much-watched television. Now, if you don't like tennis, if you're a sports fan. I mean, a couple of scenarios there where Alcaraz had to respond. He did in the second set tiebreaker. A scenario where Djokovic had to respond. That was in the fourth set, down 2-1. And both had break points early in the fifth set. So it has an ebb and flow to it where for a long period of time, you didn't know who was going to win. And when you have that with classic shot making at that venue, which is one of the most historic, if not the most historic venues in all of sports. Remember, Yankee Stadium has changed. Wimbledon is not. It's the same stadium. If you look at it that way, this in Augusta, I mean, I don't know, where you're going to get anything better than that. An absolute Donnybrook, fun to watch. Alcaraz is going to win 1 million majors, so that's where we begin on an afternoon program. Now, on top of that, you have plenty of great baseball over the weekend, too. And let me get to a couple things here to get us going. First off, right now, the Padres are out. Season's over. They're not making the playoffs. They just lost 3 straight games to the Phillies after they won on Friday night. They got ambushed in a doubleheader. A miserable day was the quote from Bob Melvin. He got ejected yesterday. There's 6 or 7 games under 500. I'll be very interested to see if they think about trading Soto in the next couple of weeks. He's going to want $500 million next year when he's a free agent. His agent, Scott Boras, so, he's going to go out there and do what he does and does a great job with it. So that's the scenario. They already have Bogarts and Tatis and Machado making $300 million apiece. It's obvious that that's not a recipe of success for the franchise. And if you trade Soto now, you might get yourself a lot of that resources and capital back that you lost last year when you got him to begin with the Nationals. I don't know if the Padres will do that, but it's something that you have to think about because they are not making the playoffs in 2023. We all know that. Anybody who follows, I mean, barring a miracle, and miracles have happened, but barring that, they are not making the playoffs here in 2023. And the same goes for the Mets. And I think the interesting scenario with the Mets is what they will do with Scherzer and Verlander. The Mets salvaged one yesterday against the Dodgers. The infield was up with 2 strikes on the bunt attempt, which was silly in the 10th inning. It cost them as ball was batted down the right field line and passed, a diving Freeman, which would not have been the case. But most importantly, the Mets had a good performance out of Scherzer. Verlander was not good today on Friday night, but they had a good performance out of Scherzer. They are going nowhere. They got a less of a chance than the Padres do because the Padres don't have a divisional winner who's 25 games ahead, as the Mets do. Do the Mets entertain moves to get rid of Scherzer and Verlander? All right, David Robertson's going to get traded. You're not going to get a lot back for him. Marte, if anybody wants him, fine. Kane, if anybody wants him, fine. If you really want to sit there and see if you get some draft capital and get some prospects back and build up the organization a la the Dodgers, which is what the owner has said over and over again, you would trade him to a team like Texas, who needs a pitcher in the worst way, a big starting pitcher with DeGrom out. So we'll see what the Mets decide to do with Scherzer and DeGrom because Scherzer and Verlander, because the Mets now, they're going to be a non-entity in New York. Most Met fans are Jet fans, and the Jets open up training camp this week, and they're going to be a huge story with Aaron Rodgers. So it'll be interesting to see how the Mets handle it now as far as the NL East is concerned. It's one of those years that just didn't click. What are you going to do? Those are the 2 big themes over the weekend. If you're worried about Arizona right now, the Diamondbacks got swept up in Toronto. They haven't played well for a long period of time, which in a lot of ways began with the Mets when they walked into Phoenix a couple weeks ago and swept them 3 straight games. Arizona's in some trouble. They're in 3rd place in the NL West, no longer in 1st or 2nd. They got ambushed by the Blue Jays, who have played well lately, and the Blue Jays, put themselves in good postseason positioning. So where Arizona is right now would concern me. That is number 3. Number 4 would be Seattle. That's a terrible series for them. They got beat by Detroit 2 out of 3. They were fortunate to get out of the game yesterday with a win. Can't lose 2 out of 3 to the Tigers at home when you're trying to make the playoffs. They're only at 500. The Astros had a good series in Anaheim. The Astros in Texas are way ahead. Anaheim, they're only 3 or 4 games back of Houston, and they just beat them there 3 out of 4. But still, you got to start the second half better than that. And I would be worried about where Seattle is as far as the AL West is concerned. I don't think the Angels are trading Ohtani. I've been on that theme. I know there's always going to be speculation. Well, they're going to listen. That means absolutely nothing. Of course they're going to listen. If somebody picks up the phone and offers the Angels their whole team and every great prospect they got for Ohtani, they would probably trade him. But that's not going to happen. He's a 2-month rental. I would be surprised at the end of the day if the owner makes that move. I really would be surprised. That's going to be a lot of speculation over the next 2 weeks because he's out of there at the end of the year, and they are not making the playoffs either. So, and that was a terrible loss they had yesterday. 4 runs in the 9th inning after a good win on Saturday. Concerned about the Reds. Milwaukee went in there and beat them 3 straight games, 2 out of 3 last weekend in Milwaukee, 3 in a row earlier in the year in Cincinnati. The Reds struck out 50-something times in the last 4 games to the Brewers, and a lot of those strikeouts came out of the strike zone. Milwaukee's got very experienced pitchers who've been around a little while, and the Reds got a bunch of hackers who swing at everything, and they swung at a lot of pitches. I have a good buddy of mine who saw every Reds game this year against Milwaukee, and he said a big problem the Reds have against them is they swing at everything, and that cost them. Remember, they were shut out 3 straight times. I think it was 3 straight times spanning last weekend. Then they lost yesterday 4-3. Had a lot of trouble scoring runs against the Brewers. They're 0-6 against Milwaukee in their ballpark, and Milwaukee doesn't play there again this year. Cincinnati has 1 more series in Milwaukee at the end of July, and that is it, head-to-head for the remainder of the season. They trail by 2 right now in the National League Central, and a very, very good job. Very good job by the Brewers, who have pitched well. A little scary with Burns there on Friday night. He didn't know with the heat what was going on. He had to take a pause. That was a little scary, but he went out there and he completed the innings. Devin Williams has had a great year as a closer. So a nice job by the Brewers. 2 games ahead of Cincinnati now, although that was a significant series this weekend in the NL Central. So he put that in the equation, too. And the Phillies did a good job, 3 out of 4. And Baltimore, which I know Alana's going to talk about, did a good job as well. Mets, Padres concerned. Are they going to trade off some of their? They could trade Soto and Scherzer and Verlander. I don't think the Mets would trade them, but you could think about it. And obviously, Arizona back in the pack, issues for them. Seattle back in the pack, bad series against Detroit, issues for them. I don't think Ohtani is going anywhere. And a nice job out of the Brewers over the weekend in Cincinnati. They have owned them this year. They are 8-1 in the 9 games played so far. Miss Rizzo's in the house. Great to have her with us on this 17th day of July on our Monday morning. And she says hello, Alana. The floor is yours. Take it away.
Good morning. Good to be with you. I hope you had a great weekend. I think the reason that the Brewers swept the Reds is because Matt Arnold was here on high heat on Friday. So maybe it's the high heat good luck charm as far as that is concerned. Good job by the Brewers over the weekend. Not a good job, of course, by the New York Yankees in Colorado against the Colorado Rockies. Before my first stint, Chris, at MLB Network, I had the privilege of covering the Colorado Rockies exclusively for 5 seasons. I have seen my fair share of absolutely bananas ball games in Coors Field. A lot of pitchers don't like pitching there, obviously, because of the altitude and the thin air, but a lot of managers scratch their head because it's such a difficult place to hold a lead. Well, here's something that's actually historic. It's not a big deal if they had the come from behind win. That's happened a billion times in Denver. But per Elias, the Rockies' win over the Yankees was just the 3rd time in the live ball era. So that's back in 1920 that this has happened. Just the 3rd time since 1920. A go-ahead grand slam in the 8th inning. Then you have a game-tying home run in extra innings, and then you have a walk-off home run in extra innings. The 2 teams, or the 2 games prior to that happening, are in June 4th of 2013, Philadelphia over Miami, and then July 4th, 1962, Cleveland, then the Indians over the Detroit Tigers. So a bit of a historic come-from-behind walk-off win for the Colorado Rockies over the Yankees. But the point is, the Yankees dropped 2 of 3 to a team that they absolutely should beat, at least on paper. And now they are tied with the Boston Red Sox for last place in the AL East. In fact, they are 5th in the AL East based on what they've done in their last 10 games. You can see it here. AL East standings, the Rays and the Orioles. We bring this up because the Orioles have done exactly what they needed to do, and nobody thought that they could sustain for the entire year. Look at them now, Chris. They're only one game behind the Rays in the AL East. The Orioles host the Dodgers, who lost 2 of 3 to the Mets. They host them for 3. That game, by the way, the first game is right here on MLB Network. The Rays go to Texas for 3 before they meet in a 4-game series in Tampa starting on Thursday. Now, the Orioles are on an 8-game win streak. And remember, going into the break, Tampa Bay was limping into the All-Star break. I want to say they dropped 6 straight. Lee Simmons and research can check me on that. But I think they dropped 6 straight games going into the break. In fact, we had the game on Apple TV, and Ryan Spielborg, the analyst, said that no team in Major League Baseball could benefit from the break more than the Tampa Bay Rays, just based on how well they had played all year, but kind of limping there into the second half of the season. So the Orioles are going in the right direction. The Rays seemed tired going into the break. And you can see now their upcoming schedule, not necessarily that easy. At the Rangers for 3, as I mentioned. Then they meet up with the Orioles, the team that is chasing them. That's going to be a huge series, 4 games. Each game, of course, is a full game shift there. The Marlins for 2. At the Astros, which is tough to play at Minute Maid Park, and then at the Yankees. So it's not going to get any easier for the Tampa Bay Rays. The Orioles are doing exactly what they need to do. Again, it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain that pace in the second half. We're seeing what could possibly happen with the Arizona Diamondbacks not maintaining the pace that they had in the first half. Hopefully the D-backs can get it going as well and make a run for it legitimately in the National League West.
Yeah, they're in trouble. Tampa lost 7 in a row before they won that last game against Atlanta before the break. They got a little layup this week against Kansas City. Despite losing there on Sunday, they won a couple of games. So we'll see excellent job on the Tampa schedule. I watched a lot of the Yankee game, and I saw the Yankees a lot over the weekend. I know Aaron Boone says, you know what, there's no layups in Major League Baseball. All these teams are professional players. That's a bunch of nonsense, okay? The Yankees went 5-7 against... and you got to beat the A's, and the Yankees lost the game to them. You got to beat St. Louis, who are terrible. They lost 2 to them, and they lost 2 to the Cubs the weekend before the All-Star game at home. So the Yankees went 5-7 in a 12-game stretch against the Rockies, the Cubs, the A's, and the Cardinals. That's terrible baseball.
I know the Yankees are banged up. We've talked about that at length. They're banged up, but they're not going to get a pass. Josh Donaldson on the way to the IL. Aaron Judge, who knows when he's coming back. I get it, but with that payroll, you don't get a pass. And those are the teams that are, the teams that are below 500. If you are the New York Yankees, you have to beat those teams.
100%. And, the Red Sox are getting healthy right now, a little better. Even Sale threw off a mound the other day, and they're playing the A's this week in Oakland. So they're liable to bury them some more, and the Yankees are in Anaheim. So it's sometimes you got to beat the bad teams. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And the Yankees went 5-7 in a 12-game stretch against bad teams. I don't want to hear about, they're Major League players. Nonsense. You got to beat the bad teams, and the Yankees have not done that, so we'll keep an eye on that.